Hi everyone, this is Hannah Olukoye, all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. I'm so sad that I wasn't able to come in person to Cape Town. I'm hopeful next year or in the years to come, I'll make sure I show up. And thank you for so much for listening to my session. And I hope that I'll get to hear some feedback from you, either Twitter or any other way you can reach me. I'll be sure to send a few links. So let's get started. The session today, the topic is what do success stories and soft skills have in common? I'll be giving a few tips from an Android engineer's perspective. So a bit about me. You can see a few photos, a few illustrations that I put up. I love to play drums. I haven't played since the pandemic, but I'm hopeful that I'll get back to it. I love trying out recipes that I find online. I love to bake. Uh, of course, motivation from the pandemic again. And I love to develop Android apps and Android Studio. Then the other thing about me that not many people know is that I come from a non-technical background. I studied actuarial science, and I'm pretty sure many people in South Africa know about that course. So I studied actuarial science, and then I transitioned into tech. So yeah, I have a few tips that I've got through my journey so far. In today's talk, I'll be talking about networking. I'll be touching a few points on interviews, and then I'll be touching lastly on just how to communicate effectively when you're in the workplace. So let's start off with a bomb quote that I read in one of the books recently by Kanika Tova. The book is on career rehab. So she talks about how you can take time to just do over your career and what are some of the helpful tips that you can get. It was a really interesting book. Would highly recommend it. So the quote that I picked today was career dropouts can always go back to being corporate rebels because your personal brand will never die. I'll be touching a bit on personal brand again within my talk. So yeah, we look, look forward to getting a few tips on that. So why would you want to network? Why is networking important for us as techies? One thing I saw that networking helps personally is how to navigate imposter syndrome. And then it also helps you to create a personal brand. Why? Because you get to meet people who have worked on different kinds of projects, have worked on different kinds of sectors globally. And then by meeting them and by interacting with them, you get to see that our personal brand gets like how you make your personal brand much better. And then how to navigate imposter syndrome, which is something I'll also touch on. It's something that we all face. Believe me, even GDEs go through imposter syndromes. And yeah, I'll give you a few tips on how to know your triggers and know how to navigate through them. Let's start off with imposter syndrome. So some of the things that would be high on this that would trigger imposter syndrome is the past mistakes that you've gone through. For example, a project that you worked on and it actually failed, nothing came out of it. When you start to overthink through a project, that's something that would highly trigger your imposter syndrome. Then, when you keep procrastinating and not meeting deadlines, another way you're just triggering imposter syndrome. And then, generally, a work setting environment would also trigger imposter syndrome. An example is when you're a woman in tech and you find that you're the only lady in the team. Imposter syndrome just quickly checks in. And then also working on unfamiliar tasks. For example, if you're used to working on apps that had a certain domain, for example, maybe an example would be like a money app, money transfer. Then now you get a project where now you're dealing with um, something to do with, let's say, healthcare, and that is something very new to you. So you get to feel the imposter syndrome is checking in. So how do we navigate this? One, you need to actually acknowledge that you have the imposter syndrome. That's something that would actually be a way to to like pinpoint what exactly it is. So when you acknowledge it, the next step is to try and go through the process. And a case would be, for example, when you find in the work setting it's not sort of conducive for you, you would challenge yourself to see how you can grow and be better at this. Then the third thing would be to build a support system. So when you build a support system, this is, for example, if you're the only woman in the team, reach out to other women in tech, whether remotely, whether even in the workplace or in other departments. This is a way to just build a support system for you, and you can be able to learn from their experiences. What are some of the tips they had, or ways they navigated that actual feeling? Because as you know, syndrome is only a feeling, and it can only inhibit you to do stuff. So yeah, that's what I would like to say. Then now when we go to personal branding, so one thing I learned over the years is that your personal brand is unique to you, right? So you can decide that your personal brand would be something similar to someone else's. You can't choose to steal someone else's personal brand, because that way it's not really unique to you. And then it has to be something memorable. So think about things that would make you stand out when you're talking about your personal brand. An example would be if you if you're big on, for example, if you're big on cars, like you like adrenaline and speed and all that, then find a way to showcase that as you're talking about your personal brand. And make sure it's something that is valuable. Why is it valuable? Because the the this is how you capture the attention of the person you're trying to showcase your personal brand to. Like, for example, in interviews, which is the next thing I'm going to talk about, you need to be able to show how you're bringing value to the team that you'll be joining, how you'll be bringing value um, to the company, for example, as a whole. So yeah, now we'll go to interviews. So the big thing about interviews is first your resume and cover letter. A few would say that in tech it's not a must, but coming from an engineering manager point of view, which is what I am right now, and even being a techie all these years, I've seen that your resume actually matters, your CV, because you're trying to get that first initial introduction call with them, right? And you need to apply in a way that stands out. So first, make sure your CV has three important sections: your profile statement, your super skills. I call them super skills because you need to be able to stand out and show how super you are at them. Then your experience over the years. So what happens if you're just an intern? I always say write your experience as part of the projects that you've been working on while in school or with volunteer projects. Those are things that would still count as your experience. I put in my email address just here so that if you need help, or if you need me to go through your CV for you, reach out to me. I'll take the time. I think for me, this is something I'm really passionate about. So, and I've had success stories actually out of helping a few techies. So please reach out. And then the cover letter, I always say, is a way of summarizing whatever is in your CV in a way that is more personal. So don't try and like make it super formal or super casual. Just make it a summary in a fun way. It can be a fun way, it can be a short way, but it should be a summary of everything that is inclusive in your CV. So yeah. Then how do you prepare for interviews? One way would be I put in 2 points: that take time to study and practice, then work on that attitude. Why study? Because we all know tech interviews are not for the weak. um, try try doing a Microsoft or a Google interview without studying. You will feel the pain. So take time to study. There are sites like HackerRank. I just put in HackerRank because this is what is not commonly used, but there are a few others like LeetCode. Choose something that actually works for you. I feel like when you're at a beginner level, sometimes HackerRank can become quite intimidating. So pick something like Code Labs that just takes you through every stage of the library you're trying to learn and gives you assessments towards the end so that you can be able to gauge yourself. Then YouTube videos are actually quite good because you get to see how you need to solve the problem when you're in an interview kind of setting. And it's free, right? So YouTube is a good tool to use. Then work on that attitude because positivity goes a long way. I remember like sometimes when you want to, for example, when I walk into an interview and that day I'm already feeling defeated, that energy passes on to the interviewer, right? So you need to walk in with, join the call, walk in to interviews with a positive attitude, believe in yourself, have all the confidence. Don't be arrogant though, but yeah, just have all the confidence and believe that you got this. Then the big thing on salary negotiation. This quote by Reno Perry says, most people think negotiation is about salary, but there's so much more on the table than you think. Why do I agree with this? I think for us, when you're starting out, there's that whole perception of, oh, as a techie, I'm going to be paid all this money and I'm going to start with a really high salary, which is competitive and all that. But I'd like to just inform you that it doesn't mean that the actual gross figure that you're getting is what will be the high compensation. The high compensation can come in extra leave days, like for example, unlimited days off. If you have an education budget within your salary, within your offer, if you have medical cover, for example, there are so many things you can be able to negotiate about. So don't be fixated on just thinking about the end amount that you're going to be getting. It can get a bit intimidating, I know, but with time you get to learn that being able to even work from home, that's something that you can negotiate about, right? And you can be able to um, be flexible about where you work, and you can work, for example, globally, which is really remotely anywhere, which is really nice. So I also wanted to want to bring to your attention that there's a global gender pay gap that is well known, and because I'm passionate about speaking to women in tech, it's good for you to know that as a woman, you end up negotiating for a lower amount than what men would want, a man in the same career level would be asking for. And the confidence that I think I find when even going to interviews that men have, they're not shy about saying the amount they want. They're not shy about talking about their experience. Let me give an example. So a lady would be working on a project, for example, let's say a Python, learning how to code with Python. She's done all these tutorials for a year. She's done a few projects, for example, 3 projects. She walks into the interview and says, oh, I'm still trying to figure out how to use Python. This is what I can do. But a man with the same kind of experience, maybe even half a year of doing those tutorials in Python, would say, okay, so I'm proficient in this, I can do this. And they end up overselling themselves during the interview. And why is this? Because they believe that they can, and for sure they will. So I always remind ladies that don't be shy, own your skill because you're actually good at it. Last thing I'm gonna talk about is the communication. So this is something I learned in my early internship days that not everyone understands why communication is important. And I'm really grateful I got a good boss, a good manager who was able to help me get better at this. For example, on phone etiquette, writing good emails, showing up for meetings on time. So the small things that actually make a difference for you who's now joining our workplace. And uh, I always say like when you give it your best, it actually stands out when during your review. So show up for meetings on time. Be polite when you're sending emails. Respond to emails on time. And one thing I also learned while working in Mandela is over communicate. By over communicating means let your peers, let your boss know what you're working on, so that there's no point they'll feel like they're not sure what's going on your table. And this way you're setting up for yourself for success. So one of the things that has helped me also through my journey is joining tech communities. For example, being part of an Android developer team here in Kenya, that has been really huge for me. And there's countless of opportunities that I've got through just being in that group. Then attend tech conferences. I know at first it can seem intimidating or can seem overwhelming, but like for you who's here now, this is one way that you're setting up yourself for success. Then give time to volunteering and the internships. For volunteering, you can also just collaborate with another more experienced developer, let them know that you're available to work with them on a project. And this way, you get to expose yourself, learn more skills, and you don't get paid for it, but your portfolio is getting bigger and bigger. So that's one tip I like. So for the resources that I always recommend, I have a few links here, and yeah, I know you can't really like type this all down and have them with you. So I will be sharing my slides just immediately after this. And the road to GDE is something I would also like to highlight because a lot of people will ask me, how did I, sorry, how did I become a GDE? And this is one program that it's 3 months that would help you to get yourself ready for the GDE interview. It took me several years and one yeah, 2 attempts to become GDE. To become GDE, and I'm grateful that I finally got the title just mid this year, and it's been quite the experience. You get to work with Googlers, you get to interact with them, meet them in interviews. In tech conferences. So yeah, thank you for listening to me. You can scan this QR code to access my slides after this, and follow me on Twitter. Reach out to me on Twitter. I'm accessible there, and let me know what you think. Unfortunately, for this time, we won't have question and answer since I'm not there with you. But I'm really looking forward to hearing your feedback and any questions that you might have.